My name's Fran, and I am the Home Energy Officer at Cambridge Carbon Footprints. And one of my jobs is to run a thermal imaging project, which has been going for quite a long time. Tom, do you want to go on to the next slide?
Oh, okay.
Okay, so this training is hopefully going to cover a sort of range of things. And then the plan is we've got this training online now, which is kind of an introduction to it all. And then towards winter time, when it's thermal imaging weather again, because it's a bit useless at the minute, we're going to be coming in to deliver some kind of in-person training and spend a bit more time with you. And that's, you can get your hands on a bit more and sort of do a bit more. So what's covered is it's a slightly different, because actually the part 4 I'm going to do first, which is about our training and loan scheme. We're going to have a look at brief look at uses of thermal imaging camera, using them, interpreting images, and hopefully leave lots of time for any questions at the end. Next slide, please. Okay, so as I said, one of my jobs is to run our thermal imaging training and loan scheme. As you can see, this is done through the financial support of our district council. So we've got Huntingdonshire, Cambridge and South Cambs District Council, and some of our business sponsors as well, who help us to run this project. Next slide, please. So the project's been running for over 10 years. We own and some people lend their thermal imaging cameras to us, which we can then lend out to anyone, members of the public, residents, homeowners across the region. We recruit and train and support volunteer hosts who are dotted across the region. So hopefully people can borrow a camera that's near to them.
That's me in the picture doing some hosting, handing out a camera.
Do it at the doorstep, which is a great opportunity for people just to connect and sort of talk to each other as well, about the thermal imaging and home energy. We train residents online for free. Obviously, with all these cameras, we manage a booking system, an online booking system, and all the communications that go with that. Respond to any borrower queries and feedback. Collate reports and complete evaluation from people who borrow the camera, and very kindly fill in reports and survey reports, so we can collect data about what they've found and sort of build a picture of what's out there. We promote and market the scheme across the region, and we support quite a few communities now who are doing multiple surveys within their community. So there might be a community group or a person who might just be doing a couple of streets in their region, or a community group who's doing whole parts of their community. We've had villages do sort of like 90% of their village, small villages, but have gone around and done loads of houses in their villages, which is fantastic. Next slide, please. There we go. So our training runs over winter between November and February, so it's once a month. It's online, it's free. We can currently say we train up to 200 people at a time. We have capacity to do so. We have lots of experienced volunteer trainers, much like Tom here, and other volunteers who get involved with it. It's great to sort of gain skills to use thermal imaging cameras and help people to interpret the images, which is where the pitfalls can be. And we try to spend a lot of time responding to people's questions and all sorts of interesting conversations about, can I find mice in my wall and things like this, which is always quite interesting. Next slide, please. So I'd say we have quite a few cameras in our scheme at the minute, and they're dotted sort of all over the place, which is fantastic. So most people can find a camera to borrow. And this is just sort of a sort of view of how they can do that on our online system. Next slide.
Shall I just say at the top here?
Oh, yes.
It's so people can borrow a camera either through the weekdays from Monday afternoon to Friday morning, or over the weekend from Friday afternoon to Monday morning. And that seems to work quite well. It's good for people to have them more than that. You need it more than a day usually because people have
Yeah,
got other things going on.
exactly. And we have a camera available separately as well if people do want to do multiple surveys and borrow one for say a couple of weeks, because they're doing quite a lot of houses in their village or community, then we have that available to them as well. And our borrowing season is November through to sort of the end of March as well, because as we know, it's now getting a bit warm and for it. Um, so to people to borrow a camera, people come on our training, so they know how to use it and know how to interpret the images. They sign a borrowing agreement, sort of covers our insurance, and then they can find a camera hopefully near them that's available to book when they want it. Um, they get all the confirmation emails with details of where to pick up the camera. Um, and then hopefully they will complete a survey at the end of it, which is always lovely to have back.
And we class the
Okay.
borrowers as
Mm.
volunteers because in that category, we can more easily get insurance for CCF volunteers. So if the camera gets lost or damaged, we can make a claim.
Yeah, but it's very rare. That has happened, very
So
rare.
somebody dropped a camera. Well, they had a camera in a bicycle pannier, which fell off their bike and was immediately run over by a car. So it was a write-off. I was quite pleased it was our oldest camera and we replaced it nicely.
I'd say it's one of those very Cambridge problems, that as well. Okay, next slide, please. So the impact of all of this, we'll send you, or Tom's put our latest report from last year in the chat, and I'm just about to write the other one. You can see we have quite a big impact. So say we've been doing this for about 10 years. We've gone from sort of training, sort of a dozen or 2 dozen people in a room, to training hundreds of people online multiple times over the year, making hundreds of loans, resulting in hundreds of buildings being surveyed across the region. We peaked, I think, 2023 to 2024, which because we grew our camera capacity quite a lot and had quite a lot of interest before that. And now I think we've sort of stabilized. We've got a really good number of cameras, and we're sort of stabilizing from that peak, which is fantastic. But as you can see, we have made quite a few loans to people in Peterborough postcodes, which is fantastic to see their interest around there. Okay, next slide, please.
Okay, so this is the training bit, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I've got a few of the slides that we would use in an online training session, and I'm just going to romp through these, but may give you an idea for what's involved. And so for most borrowers will be surveying their own home, and this will reveal thermal problems. We don't cover in that session how to fix those problems as well, because that's a big subject, and we want people to improve their comfort and cut their bills and carbon emissions. And we're lending thermal cameras, but actually you can do a lot of this work with a cheap infrared thermometer, which is like a kind of 1 pixel version of the camera, but the camera's much more graphic. And so we start by showing people, things they might see. This is it in the top floor of a house looking up at the ceiling. And so we're asking people, oh, what's this blue rectangle here, this cold bit? Any ideas?
Loft hatch?
Yes, I think uninsulated loft hatch. And then there's some areas here where the insulation's missing or thin. And okay, and a lot of these have animations, things pop up. So there's drafts, there's cold bridges. It's very good for checking heating system faults if radiators need bleeding. In one case, a tenant, the central heating was going haywire. It had a thermostat in the hall, and the whole radiator was full of air. So the central heating system was working very, very hard to heat up the hall, not succeeding, and they've had big bills. So, and similarly, it's great for seeing if there's a problem with underfloor heating. Yeah, there's a section that's probably a bit blocked. And so we tell people about the cameras. These are the types of camera we're lending out. And, you know, there are some that are this kind of upright version that have a trigger to pull to take an image, and others that are more like digital cameras. And some, this one works wirelessly with phones, which is good. Anyway, we can talk more about that in questions. So you have a choice between auto or manual in all of these cameras. And we recommend auto most of the time. It's straightforward and it keeps readjusting the scale to the hottest and coldest things in view. This scale here, where it often shows you the value of colors versus temperature. But if you've got something unusually hot in the image, like in this case, the radiator, that's just dominating. And so it's better to go to a manual setting where here the radiator is off scale, hot, white, but you're seeing more thermal detail. And the same here, there's another two images where there's a little bit of cold sky. The thermal cameras are seeing into the upper atmosphere if it's not cloudy. So this is saying minus 50 degrees. And so that messes up your automatic temperature scale. But if you turn away from that bit of sky and lock it, then you see a lot more detail in this home. And when you're viewing from the outside, hot, this red color is leaky, and it's the reverse. When we saw the loft hatch, there was leaking heat, that was blue and cold. And so in general, especially when you're beginning, I would allow not an hour or 90 minutes. And so the images are best when it's 10 degrees warmer inside than outside, or more than that, you know. You can get some images if it's only 5 degrees warmer inside, but they're not so vivid. And so that's why it's really a cold weather winter activity. And it's good to check inside and outside. Some things are differently revealed or not. Sometimes you can't see it from the outside. And there are pitfalls in interpreting the images. One of them is with, this is a shiny metal stainless steel kettle. It is just boiled. And the thermal camera thought that the outside of the kettle was at 32 degrees, which is plainly wrong. Shiny metals give you false readings. They have a low emissivity, is the technical term. But what we encourage people to do in this, in the camera bag, we put a reel of PVC tape, electrical tape, and you stick that on and measure the temperature of that. And now the thermal camera says this is 95 degrees, which is probably pretty much spot on. And similarly, you can get reflections from windows. When you're looking up at a window like this, it might seem much colder than it really is because you've got a reflection of the cold sky. And another problem is if you're if the sun being heating up one of your walls, well, of course, that will give you a confusing result. And of course, hot walls, once they have been heated, can stay warm for several hours.
Which is the problem we've got this time of year.
And so there's a page of resources which you can look at later. We'll share a PDF or maybe the PowerPoint too of these slides. But with borrowers, we share them the PDF of these slides, and that gives them clickable links. Just in passing, we also lend out carbon dioxide monitors like this. They don't need training, it's just some online resources, but they measure the carbon dioxide in your room. And if like this, which happened in our bedroom with my wife, it went up into a sort of negative heat, the bad health effect area. We didn't have enough ventilation. When we opened the door to the rest of the house, it was just fine. This is the kind of thing you can find out. It records the carbon dioxide every hour. Okay, so that was my bit. Shall I stop sharing?
Have you not got, are we covering the other bits, Tom?
Oh, sorry, if I stopped too soon.
Yeah.
Okay, let's try again. Well, what else did you want me to cover? The lending of a camera.
Oh yeah, no, I think that was it. Yeah.
I have been through our full slide set
Yeah.
that we
Yeah.
agreed.
Yeah, that's it. Oh, well done. Yeah. Okay. Well, that was the okay. So we've got sort of lots of time for questions, really, and happy to sort of talk over any sort of questions that you might have about thermal imaging or what we do. I suppose one of the sort of questions I had for you was, I think, Gemma, you said you've got some cameras or got a camera. Was it one of the Fleur One Pro, the plug into the phone, smartphone one?
No, we didn't go with those in the end. So we've got, and Keith probably knows more about than me or Henry. I think we've got a couple of ones, handheld ones from the while back. Not sure how old they are. And then we've recently bought, I think, 3 of the HIC Micro Pocket that you recommended.
Yeah.
We were going to go with the phone attachments, but I think you'd said that they're a bit flimsy and can be a bit unreliable. So, yeah, I think we've got around 5
Yeah.
Right.
cameras now, but correct me if I'm wrong, any pet people.
That's fantastic. That's really good. Yeah, they're very easy to use. I can use them, which does make them very easy to use because technology is not my thing. Yeah.
And with both those camera types, you connect them into your laptop or whatever with a USB lead, and then it's just like plugging in a memory stick. There's a new drive D or whatever pops up, and you can move the files onto your disk to save. We ask people to take their files off the disk afterwards, because otherwise the next borrower is going to be confused. And it's good to set the cameras, we suggest, to record both a thermal image and a visible image of the same thing, because that really helps you remember and understand what you're looking at. Because if you just have a picture of a wall with a patch on it, it may be hard to remember where you are.
Yeah. One of the things we sort of train people to do as well when they're going around doing surveys of their own home is when they're taking pictures, maybe just to write down, picture 1 is something, it's this and that, and as well, to keep that record, because when you go back and look at it in a month's time, you've got no idea where you're looking at. It's just a corner of a room somewhere. So it gets a bit confusing. People who are doing surveys for other people might be writing notes down as well to give to homeowners about that.
So it's PECT. Have you decided yet, or are you just thinking about whether you're going to use cameras with your professional home energy people, or are you thinking of starting a loan scheme?
I think we've already got a kind of informal loan scheme, is my
Oh, right.
understanding. Keith or Henry, I don't know if you know any more about that, having been here a bit longer, especially Keith.
Yeah. Sorry, microphone's not in place. We do exactly as Gemma just said. As far as I know, it's an informal loan scheme that existed before I joined PECT. But an example of people who might have borrowed it, recently we've had a local resident borrow it for a weekend, or one of our cameras, and previously an environmental community group in Pidley-cum-Fenton, I believe, for example.
Yes.
So that they can share it amongst the community to assess the homes in the village.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
and that's how East Cams are operating, lending to community groups.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we've been working with a group in Warboys,
Yeah.
which they are the climate and environment group, which I think is part of their parish council, an offshoot of that. So we've been working quite closely with them because they have, for the past 2 years now, been undertaking surveys across the village, which is fantastic. So they've been, offering to residents to undertake surveys. I'm about to produce a kind of case study on that, which I'll send you as well. But it's quite interesting. They sort of get people to sign up and then go, okay, geographically, how are we going to make, we'll do this part of the village then and this part of the village then. But they've managed quite a lot of surveys doing that. And I think one of the ways it's really useful for a community organisation as well, especially someone like the parish council, is, knowing your kind of housing stock, knowing what's in the village and the problems that residents might be experiencing, but as a tool for just talking and getting out there and communicating with people about energy efficiencies, homes, climate. It's just such a really useful tool, very engaging visual tool to sort of talk to people with. So it's great to hear that community groups are doing that. We have more demand from them coming up. I think next year we've got a few more other villages who are going to be copying that model as well, which I think is really interesting.
We
Just
took
scaling up the impact.
That's really good. Sorry, Fran, I was just going to say we've been doing some workshops out in rural areas of Peterborough, and we took one of our cameras out with some example images of what you can photograph, and people had a play with it and really enjoyed it. Kind of found it, having a bit of a play with the camera, but also they seem to really be interested in being able to use this at home and perhaps borrowing a camera. So it feels like there might be some demand for this locally, and perhaps there's more we can do to promote the service, particularly sort of from next year.
I've put a link in chat to some research by Plymouth University where 100 I think they were homeowners, I'm not sure, tenants as well. Anyway, 100 people had a kind of home energy survey and were given a written report recommending what they could do to improve things. And half the people also got thermal images of those problems. And yes, the group who also got the thermal imaging ended up doing a lot more of the fixing of the problems. I think they're motivating. You get an image in your head about that bit of loft up there that needs properly insulating, and it just keeps going if you've got a picture in a way that I don't think words do.
Yeah, we do get people coming on the training one year, borrowing the camera, completing a survey and saying, I found all, these problems and so on, coming back the next year, borrowing the camera again, once they've fixed the problems, to check that, they are actually fixed. So again, really useful to check that the fixes that you have done have been effective. For new homes, I think there's a lot more demand now. We're seeing people who have bought new homes concerned about some problems that they might be having and wanting to investigate that. So I think that's really worth bearing in mind as well for communities where you've got large proportions of new homes. Just checking that the insulation has actually been put in that they say it was, and things like that.
And on the page of links that I flip past there's one particularly angled, quite a good resource about thermal imaging in new homes, with images of good and bad examples by the National Home Builders Council. So you may want to follow that. We've got a lot of interest from people in Northstowe because there's quite a lot. well, actually, we ran a kind of Christmas event there, and some people were saying, "Oh, my home's lovely, it's brilliant," but a good more than half, I'd say, were upset by the fact that some rooms were cold and they were drafty or whatever, the usual range of new build problems.
Has anyone got any questions about the cameras themselves or doing the thermal imaging?
Keith?
Just to confirm your sort of little demonstration earlier. So in terms of operation and functionality of the camera themselves, you would suggest leaving it set on the auto setting, which presumably is default, unless, as the example you said, you need to isolate a sort of heat source that's dominating the image or something like that.
It's when you've got extremes of temperature in the camera's view that you suddenly then lose kind of thermal resolution from everything else, because you've got this very hot or cold thing upsetting the auto.
Yeah.
Sometimes you may be able to just turn away from the hot or cold thing, but switching to manual lets you will then fix that. And sometimes it's useful to be on manual if you want to compare different rooms, and you've got the same temperature scale. That this shade of orange always corresponds to 18 degrees or whatever.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Yeah, I would say that when doing surveys externally, that is the trickiest thing with the sort of night sky, and it's high pitch roofs make it a lot easier because you'll be able to stand back and generally can block it out a bit. But the lower the pitch, you're stuffed with it. Really, the sky is going to be there, so it is really.
So you may need to be on manual if that's happening.
What do you do if you've got a flat roof?
Well, it's
You
hard.
get up there. Yeah. A telescopic pole for the camera, perhaps?
Well, possibly. There are people now offering commercially drone surveys, which are great for that.
Oh, sure,
and for big, tall buildings, you can imagine.
Yeah.
But you will see particularly with a flat roof, you'll probably see most of the problems from inside. Yeah. Whereas if you've got a pitched roof with a loft, then that's rather different. And it's quite good to have an image of a pitch roof from the outside, one with a loft, because if there is a lot of heat coming out of that pitch roof, it means your loft insulation isn't up to scratch.
It's been quite handy for flat roofs finding leaks. Because you can kind of trace the leak back to the source sometimes, which is quite useful. And looking at the insulation of pipes as well. In your walls and ceilings, which can be quite revealing and terrifying at times.
Quite useful. You can see where your central heating pipes run as well in the walls if they're embedded in the walls.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
And
you
even
don't know it's useful.
If power cables that are handling a lot of power get noticeably warm, and you can see those as well sometimes, but obviously not if it's just one LED bulb on that wire.
Okay. Any other questions about the cameras or thermal imaging at all?
You said that usually the difficulty comes in interpreting the images. Have there been many times, or like what advice would you give to people when they're struggling with interpreting images?
So I think that's why we think that borrowers need training. It's not a big deal, but it's to avoid the pitfalls of. It's easy to get pretty images, but you do need to know a bit more to understand them, or to not misinterpret that shiny thing that seems to be at an odd temperature. Or whatever, or the window glass is more reflective in the infrared than it is in the visible. And so quite often if people are just kind of forgotten the training, we'll refer, we say, have a look at the slides again, just remind yourself. And there are some of the trainings that we've done on YouTube, although we slightly downplay that because we don't want people just to look at the YouTube and think that they've done it all. But then sometimes, yes, people will be genuinely puzzled. Sometimes we are genuinely puzzled as to what's going on here. But it's hard sometimes to kind of remotely diagnose what's wrong with a house. Most building professionals wouldn't do that. They want to see it in person because there's always something else going on that you might not notice in an image. So it's not a perfect catch-all means of knowing everything it needs doing about to your home to retrofit it, for example. But for a lot of people, it's the start of that journey, and it gets them interested in their home's heat performance, and it's visual. They see the home in a new way, and that can be really helpful.
Exactly. I think very often people kind of know what the problem probably is in their home, that something's not insulated very well or something's particularly leaking in the room. And so very often borrowing the camera is part of that sort of confirmation process, going, oh yeah, that's definitely it. And I think having that visual confirmation gives people the boost to kind of make the change and get a fix done. In terms of the pitfalls, yeah, like those shiny surfaces, windows, if you're doing windows from the inside, you've got a reflection of yourself there sometimes, which can be sort of confusing. So going through the training just helps people just to hopefully try and remember just those little tricks that they can use, because you can put the film, the insulation tape on the window as well to get sort of true readings there. So people can just get those sort of true readings. I think what these cameras do and what this sort of scheme does, it's not a professional survey. It's not saying to people, you're going to be able to absolutely identify everything in your home and this is a professional thing, but it gives them some motivation towards if they then want to go on and do that, they can do. There are organisations that will come and do professional surveys. There's an organisation we've been talking with recently who do drone surveys and then have developed an AI tool that then takes that data and puts it into this incredibly swanky 3D computer model of a home and all its heat loss, and tells you, what heat's being lost and what it would take to fix it and how much it would cost. And it's really clever and intelligent and fantastic for doing sort of large communities as well. This is that sort of entry level to it. We've also had people borrow the cameras for finding pets, animals, bees in hives, swifts in swift boxes, all sorts of things.
The camera I host at the moment, so it's kind of out of season now for normal thermal imaging, but our local sports and social club, which makes a lot of beer sales, it seems, they have a cellar, but in fact it's just a cold room to keep their beer in, and so they're just examining how that needs better insulating because their electricity bills are pretty terrible, and actually yes, there was some that they had a cold room and a drinks chiller, which was actually heating up the cold room, and so I've said no, put that one all the time, only when you really need it. So there are other problems that and also thermal imaging can be used to try and see what's happening when a home is overheating in a heat wave. but I'd say that's not so easy and obvious.
Yeah, it's definitely trickier to, you can see, but I think those images are trickier to interpret in a heat wave. We've tried it in our house, which has been revealing, but that's the reason we haven't gone to doing sort of a summer scheme for this at the moment. But yeah, it's very, very effective winter activity. And when we come to you in the autumn, early winter, and sort of do some in-person things, then we can really get the hands on the cameras and get out and get looking at things as well. As we said before, it's really useful to do, if you can do a survey in homes, inside homes, as well as externally. I know some community groups who are doing multiple surveys don't do internal, they don't go into homes, they just do the external, because I suppose that they feel more confident and don't have to worry about safeguarding and stuff like that they might worry about, which is absolutely fine. It's just, if you do the inside as well, you get more just more data. See your leaky doors and your windows, which hopefully you don't have, but yes. Any other questions about scheme or cameras, or have you got the cameras now?
We got them a couple of weeks ago, so we're yet to have much of a play with them, but
yeah, fab. They literally are so easy to use.
good.
A bit like, they're sort of mobile phone size, and it is just take a picture the same. Just have the sort of settings on auto, as we say. Getting the photos off the camera, as Tom says, you could just USB and put them onto your laptop. Some cameras will Bluetooth, you can do it that way, clever stuff. I'd say when lending them out to other people, it is really key that they take the photos off, and then we do ask people to then delete the photos from the camera, because they get fill up really quickly, and B, you don't want other people's homes on there. It gets a bit confusing. But yeah, they are really easy to use, play with. I had my 5-year-old Rainbows group out with one of the HIC micro cameras, and they were managing taking great pictures of things. It's fantastic. So mainly each other, but it's simple enough for them to be able to use. And I think everyone has to get the obligatory pet picture when they do it as well. So that should be written into the rules.
We volunteers have also done good jobs surveying community buildings, schools, churches, and so on. Because that can be very powerful as well. And we did our local primary school here, and my wife, who was doing it, had a team of helpers, and they found out all kinds of things, and it was just motivating for them to, remember to shut the doors and windows when they need to, that kind of thing.
Exactly. It's that, as I say, it's that engagement tool. It's about having this really interactive piece of equipment that just drives conversations with people at all ages, all levels, which is really fascinating. Taking them out, if you do any outreach in community groups, really useful to take one out and just get it out and start looking at people's shoes. I'd be very careful. Sometimes people might be wearing clothes that you don't really want to thermally image, so do be careful how you point it at people sometimes. But feet are always pretty good.
Noses. People have different. Some people have hot noses and some have cold noses.
Yes, yeah. I don't know if that says anything about them particularly, but but yeah. So it is a really engaging and powerful tool, and very simple to use. Yeah. if you've got any other questions about a scheme or any other ways that we can sort of help you if you wanted to do more in that sense as well, we're happy to answer. Gemma.
Thanks, Fran. No questions from me. I don't know if anyone else in the room has anything to ask.
Okay, thank you.
Good.
Okay, well, we've done really well for the time then. Good. Okay, well, we'll be aiming to come to you in person as the weather cools again. It feels like it might not now. It's, you know, had a few days of heat, and you can't remember what it was like being freezing cold.
Early November, we tend to kick off again.
Yeah.
Although this last November was unusually warm.
Yeah.
Yeah, Rachel will be in touch, I think, probably a bit nearer the time, and it'd be great to be able to promote this out to community groups, Peterborough City Council as well. Perhaps we can have a chat about if there's anything you'd like to do with that training too.
Yeah,
it'd be great to get our hands on the cameras and start to use them practically as well.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. And you know, in between then you can go and look for some, you know, hedgehogs in your garden and stuff like that. So okay, all right, well, thank you very much for joining us. I'll send this recording, the slides and all the links, etc., over to everyone. But also, if you have any questions anytime, feel free to just drop me an email. I'm happy to answer them. Okay.
Brilliant.
Thanks,
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Tom.
Okay,
All right,
you're welcome.
take care. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Have a good week.
Thanks.
See you
Bye.
later. Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you.
Bye.